Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. This training will take approximately an hour and a half to an hour and 45. Try to get it closer to that 1 hour and a half mark as much as possible. If you have any questions, feel free to make use of the chat, and I will try to go back to that feature or address the question as quickly as possible. We got just about a minute here, so some administrative things to go over. We are typically here Tuesdays at 10 o'clock Pacific time, just as a heads up. The first 2 weeks in January, the training will not be active, but we'll return on that third week after, I believe that is Martin Luther King Day. So I believe that's January 18th, we'll be back with this training. Again, we'll be going through for the rest of the year as well. All right, so on the screen here, you see our login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. You'll see a blue bar towards the top of the page. There's a login link right there. There's also the support link there. And in any case, as an admin, or actually even as a standard user, I would recommend bookmarking this page so you can get here quickly. To log in, we do need your username, which is your email address, your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you don't have your password for whatever reasons, down here towards the right, just above the sign-in bar, we have the Forgot Your Info link. So you want to click on that. We still need your email address, right? That's the key piece of information. And then the next two fields, we need one of the two. We need either the account name, right, company name, or a company phone number on the account, right? So one of the phone numbers your customers typically call to get a hold of people. Then you would just click on Reset Password here at the bottom. The system will then email you a link that gets you logged in and allows you to change your password. All right. Once you change your password, it will then log you out of the system, bring you back here to the login page, and you would log in. And the reason for that, A, is to help you remember your password, and B, it gives you the chance to click on the Remember Me box down here towards the bottom left. And then you click Sign in. Now, I'm using a test account, and I've logged in several times, so it takes me right to the dashboard. For you, if it's your first time logging in, you'll actually be taken to your account page, which you can always get to by clicking on your name. And here you see your account information. For yourself, this is where you would change your password if you wanted to change your password. You could also change your date and time display. Now, as an admin, I have access to the account information here. The main thing people tend to change is the time zone, right? It defaults you to Pacific time, right, Los Angeles, but you can click edit here and either scroll down or just type in the city that matches closest to your time zone and then click on Save Changes. Now, if you do change your account name, I would ask that you email our billing team, right? That's billing@virtualpbx.com, so that they know there's things that they will need to update on their side to match your former name to the current name you just changed to. Now, this is a test account, so I only have limited options here on the left under the settings icon. For your accounts, you actually would have an additional set of options here for billing, for things like updating your credit card. You can see your service plan, your invoices. You can even change who the billing contact person is, right? Essentially the account owner. Now, that first time you log in, right, the dash wizard pops up telling you a lot of these things. When you're done here, over here to the top right, you click on Close, and you'll be back here on the dashboard. Now, that first time logging in, Dash Wizard's still going to be up here giving you highlights of what these things are. Now, again, you can always click on your name to go back to that account page information. For many of you, you'll have another icon here for D&D, for Do Not Disturb. It's a toggle, right? So if you click on it, it moves it over to the right and becomes white. That means your Do Not Disturb is active. If you click on it, it goes back to the left, and that's black and gray. The reason I don't have it here is because my user is part of an Acd queue, and Do Not Disturb and Acd queues don't work well together. So that was removed for anyone who is part of an Acd queue. Next, we have the little help icon, right? Little question mark. And you see I have these 4 fields. The first one is chat with us. This opens up a chat window to speak to our support team so they can walk you through a feature you're working on. Learn more will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages so you can look at a particular guide with screenshots for any kind of feature. The online store, this takes you, it opens up another new tab, goes to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order a VoIP phone or a router, etc. And then the last one here is web phone. This one won't always show up. In fact, initially, the first time you log in, it won't be here. This only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user. When you have done so, then this will open up a new tab to take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. You can then use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Then we got the 3 horizontal line icon or menu icon. Some of our staff also refer to this as the hamburger icon. We are on the dashboard, which will be for most of the training. And then these are other features of Dash. Now, some of these, like Acd Cues, I've already mentioned, these have fees associated with them. Some, like the dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. So you have to be on a specific plan to be able to get this feature. And I'll make sure to cover that as we go through them. And then lastly, you have the logout icon. Now, here in the center, you've got your total users. These are the people who, on your account who make and receive calls. If you're on a per user plan, then adding additional users will increase your bill. Then we have total devices and a breakdown. So first up, we have soft phone. Now, a soft phone is a kind of VoIP phone. Now, I'm just shoved a little jargon at in your faces, so let's slow down a little bit here. So a VoIP phone, right? VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, right? It basically means it's a device that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. A soft phone is a software application, either on a computer, could be on a tablet, could be on a mobile phone, right? A smartphone. Again, it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls through that application. This soft phone here, this can be a third-party soft phone, meaning you have a soft phone application from someone outside of VirtualPBX, right? So you went to Counterpath, software manufacturer, they have many different soft phone applications. You could also, this soft phone breakdown here could also include the VirtualPBX soft phone app. Right. Then we've got the web phone, right? This is using that Chrome or Firefox. Technically, a web phone is a version of a soft phone, right? Because a browser is software. This came about later after Dash had already been established for a while, so it's part of why it has a separate heading. Cell phone, that's pretty self-explanatory. Most of us have encountered a cell phone. And then SIP phone, right? SIP is a physical VoIP phone. Now, as I mentioned, VoIP is Voice over Internet Protocol. SIP stands for Session Interface Protocol, I believe is the correct explanation, or what SIP stands for. There are multiple kinds of VoIP phones on the market, right? So SIP is a particular type. Excuse me. So if you're out shopping for VoIP phones, like you're at Best Buy, or you're on, whatever website, you want to make sure that the phones you're looking at are SIP compliant or SIP compatible. That way you at least have a chance of working with our system. Now, on top of that, we have what I refer to as auto provisional phones, right? Those are supported devices, which we'll get into when we get to the devices tab over there on the left. Now you see here, I have unregistered devices, and I have 3. This is telling me that 3 of my physical VoIP phones are not connected, right? The system cannot send calls to them. That could be because they're not plugged in, right? It could be there's an internet problem. It could be that there's a network problem where that phone is located. All the system knows is we can't send calls to it. It's not connected to us. Right, total numbers. These are phone numbers on the account. These are customer-facing phone numbers, right? Someone can call them to get to a staff member, right? Get to a voicemail, get to a conference, or send a fax. Now, or it could be a number that's just on your account and you're not using, right? And that's where we have this first breakdown here, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers, going someplace, right? Can get connected. Spare number means it's on your account, so it counts towards your monthly allotment, whatever that may be. It's usually between 2 and 15. But you're not using it right now. So like say you had a special promotion running, that promotion ended, you can take the number out of service, right? So that way you're not getting calls on a number that is no longer running a valid promotion, right? So for instance, right now, there are probably several businesses out there running holiday promotions, probably through the new year, right? After the new year rolls around, they get back in the office probably on, January 3rd or 4th, right? They can take those numbers out of service, so that way they get less calls about a promotion that's not running anymore, right? Just save cycles for your staff members. All right, then we have another breakdown here, USDID and US toll-free. So US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So you can have a phone number in Elmira, New York, or you can go down and have a number in Grapevine, Texas, go up to the northwest and get a number, say, in Corvallis, Oregon, anywhere in between. Now, you can also have international phone numbers. If you're interested in that, you need to send an email to our porting team, which is porting@virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They will double check to see if there's additional requirements. Those requirements don't come from us, right? Those come from their telephone regulatory body in that particular country. If there are additional requirements, we will let you know what those are. Once we get those from you, then we can get the number for you. Now let's clear that. All right. Down here, we have conference bridges. This means I have enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference for 3 of my users. Now, we go up to the top right, and we have main numbers. These 3 numbers act the same way, right? So they're going to go to the same location on the system, and they're going to have the same main greeting. All right, conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but this phone number is the number everyone dials to get into the conference room, whether they're your staff member, a vendor, a client, what have you. If they're going to join a conference, this is the number they dial. Fax box number, this enables the ability to accept faxes on your account, and this phone number is your inbound fax box number, or inbound fax number, excuse me. The company directory, this downloads actually it's a CSV file, used to be a text file, but it shows your users and their devices and their extension number. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file here and then upload it to the desktop soft phone application. And this will allow you to see the status or presence of all your other staff members who are making use of the soft phone, right? So I could see, oh, coworker Mike is not on a call, so I can give him a call real quick. We can talk about a customer issue that we're both working on, right? Whereas one of my bosses can see, oh, I'm on a call. There's no point in calling me right now, and he will either reach out to me later or send me a Slack message, say, hey, when you're done, call me. Now, bear in mind that this soft phone directory, it only reflects other soft phones in use. So if you have staff members who have a mix of, a combination of, say, the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone, but they also have physical VoIP phones, you won't be able to see if they're on that physical VoIP phone, only the soft phone. All right, then you have a store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store, right? The store.virtualpbx.com. You just copy and paste that in. And then lastly, down here, we have the account realm. This is used for a couple things. One, it's used to program a third-party soft phone. It's one of the 3 key pieces of information used to program that application. It's also used for outbound faxing. On Dash, sending out a fax is via email, right? So you create an email like you normally do, like you're emailing your cousin Bob. In the to field, instead of putting Bob's email address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. And just make sure you just have the 1 attachment per email. All right, up here at the top, we have caller ID. This is your company caller ID, or the default outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. Now, unfortunately, my streaming software doesn't always take pull downs, but you can select any of your main numbers here. And then you have the company caller ID name. That's a CNAME is what people refer to it as. This allows you to input 15 characters, including special characters or spaces. And after you click Save Changes down there at the bottom, that information gets transmitted out to the other carriers who support CNAME. Takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. It's unfortunately not something we can control. Now, basically that means every time you pick up your VoIP phone, make an outbound call, right, we send this phone number, right, because it's your default caller ID, and this text as part of your outbound caller ID information. Your call will route through several carriers before it reaches its destination. If any one of those carriers along the way doesn't support CNAME, your CNAME information does not reach your destination. The other thing to keep in mind is whatever network that destination device is on, right, that network and the device itself, right, they have the ultimate say what shows up on that phone's display. CNAME to cell phones can be problematic because, like AT&T, for example, if I want CNAME to show up on my cell phone, I need to pay AT&T an additional fee per month. And that way I'll get CNAME for everything that has CNAME associated with it, which is typically for businesses. And also the phone itself has to have room on its display to show your CNAME information. And if you happen to be calling someone who already has your phone number programmed into their phone, that information will supersede anything we send. All right, then we have the company emergency information, or E911. You just want to put a address here. It's typically a North American address. And that will be the default information that gets sent out if a VoIP phone user picks up their VoIP phone and dials 911. Right? So that's the address that gets sent to emergency services. Now, every phone number can have its own CNAME and its own E911 information. And additionally, every VoIP device, you can select the outbound caller ID and the outbound emergency information for each VoIP device, right? So if you have staff scattered across the country, they can have the appropriate address associated with their device. So that way, when they call 911, their correct address shows up versus your company headquarters, which they may not be at. Any changes here, you click on Save Changes. All right, hold music. So Dash will allow you to upload your own file. This can be a .mp3, a .ogg, or a .wav, .wave. You want to make sure it's recorded in mono, not in stereo. That helps you save on space, but also because audio transmitted through a phone is with 1 speaker, right? Not typically with 2. And then you want to make sure that file size is under 1 megabyte. You would click on Browse here to find the file on your computer, then the little up arrow icon here. Once it finishes uploading, you click on Save Changes. Now, hours is actually part of main number. So we'll just click on main number and wait for that to load. There we go. So we'll start at the top here is our main company numbers. All right, so these are our 3 main numbers currently. Now, I can unassign a number if I choose to no longer use it. So I can unassign this one here, the 669 number. Now, that number is not removed from my account, right? It just got moved into spare. So I can assign it to one of my users, right? Or I can assign it to a ring group, etc. Now, if I need to add numbers, you have two choices. Add from spare, right? This is available to me because I have these 3 spare numbers that I could add back as a main number, or by numbers. And then I have 2 options, local and toll-free. Toll-free is pretty straightforward. You choose the toll-free prefix you want to look for, you click on search, and the system will display available numbers in that toll-free prefix. And you can select one that you happen to like, or more. You can add multiple numbers at once. Then you would click on by numbers. The system's verifying that the number was truly available, and then it's adding it to your account and activating it. And you see now it's here. Right now it's one of my main numbers, so anyone can call this number and it would follow the path I've already established here. Now for local numbers, slightly different because you need to know the area code. Now, when you click on and search on area code, you can get this error occasionally, right? Saying that there's no numbers available in that area code. 310, it's the original Los Angeles area code. It's been exhausted for quite some time. Now, our porting team can try to do what's called a back order, meaning we try to get a number that becomes available in that area code. There's no ETA because we're waiting for someone to give up a phone number in that area code, and then we try to get it. And sometimes you can get that fairly quickly. Other times you could be waiting quite a while. So in a case like that, we typically recommend double checking to see if there's an overlay over area code or a nearby area code, right? So like 323, it's one of the nearby or other LA area codes, and I can add a number there and add it to my account. Just for a fun fact, an area code, a North American area code has roughly like 7,800,000 numbers available to it, assuming full utilization. All right, now you have a little gear icon next to these numbers. So this is where you can adjust the caller ID, right? So you can turn on the outbound CNAM for a particular number and turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM. So that way your staff members can see the caller ID name associated with an inbound caller. E911, again, you can set up an address for each phone number. And then prepend, this allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your company's VoIP phones, right? So call comes into your staff member, Bob. You can have additional text here saying that this is, say, Xmas promo, right? I save changes. So now when a call comes in on this 877 number, right, on Bob's VoIP phone, it will say Xmas promo, and then the phone number of the person who's calling in. So that way it lets Bob know, oh, this call is about our Christmas promotion, right? A little heads up about what the call might be about or how he needs to answer the call. And we'll go ahead and unassign that. All right, so next up, we have office hours strategy. You have the choice of being on 24-hour open office or on custom office hours. If you do custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark next to it. And then in these boxes here to the right, you enter your open hours in 24-hour or military time. You also have the option here at the bottom to say you're closed for lunch, right? When you put a check mark down there, then you just enter your lunch hours, right? And that just means your whole facility is closed for lunch. So your system just routes, you can have your calls route differently during your lunch hours and during your open hours. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, office holidays. First question is, are you closed for holidays? If you are, you put a check mark. And then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. And when you click on that, you have the option here for single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of those creates a new row, right? So you give it a name. So like we have here for Halloween, and then you select the month and the date, right? Then you click on Save Changes. Now for date range, we like have here, down here for Xmas break, and you set a start date, and then an end date. you would click on Save Changes. Notice that there's no year indicator. So the only caveat that we have here is you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. That has, in the past, caused problems for customers. It hasn't lately, but no risk, no reason to court additional risk. And then the advanced option is up here, like Retreat, where I'm saying, hey, the third Friday in May, we're closed, right? So the first pull down is the month. The second pull down is first through fifth, as well as last. And then the last pull down is the day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes. And then we have incoming call handling. So this incoming call handling, this refers to my main numbers. And I have open hours and holidays because I actually didn't click Save Changes under my office hours strategy. And then I have these 4 options. Now, for some of you, you might only have 3 options. This last one isn't for on every account. All right, so first up, call comes in during my open hours, and I'm sending it to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. It opens up a new window. Now, on the left, this is your main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through the phone system. Right, you can click on Add Route here to give yourself another option. Now, again, unfortunately, my pull downs aren't working, but you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action to choose from. And then on this second pull down, you can choose where you want it to go. So for instance, this pull down will work for some reason. So you have your smart PBX directory, right? The dial by name directory. Then you have any of your users, right? So any of your staff members. You can send calls to a call queue. Now, call queues are an add-on feature, so that will increase your bill. You can send it to a specific device, meaning a specific phone. We'll scroll down because there's a lot of devices. You can send it to a media file, right? This is a greeting, or this is a hold music file. Now, once this file stops playing, the call ends. So that's something to keep in mind. You can send calls to a ring group, right? These are departments. You can send it to an advanced call flow. Now this, in this case, Spanish, that would be if I'm making use of sub-menuing, right? So 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. I could have those options be available to go to a separate menu, which has its own greeting and its own menu options, right? And then lastly, you can send it to a voicemail box. So let's go up here. We can send that to a group. I'm not sure why I have so many PBX directories. So we'll change this up a little bit here. Something like that. All right. Now over here on the right, we have, first up is greetings, right? This is the message that you're gonna have play when that caller comes into your system, right? Typically the point of the greeting, right? You wanna say something like, thank you for calling. And then you also wanna give instructions, right? What are they pressing to get to where? Right? You can also include things like hours of operation, directions, special promotions. First up, we have text-to-speech, right? This is, you type in a greeting up to 250 characters, not words, characters. That's an important distinction. When you click update and then it'll say save at the bottom and then save changes, this will create a greeting with whatever you typed in a computerized or robotic voice. Now the system will use the same file name each time, right? So this is my main open hours. So it will name this file main open hours menu TTS, right? Now, like, let's say I come in here and I add, some additional text, right? I click update here. right? Then I would click Save and Save Changes. Once I do that, the system just saved a new file name, main open hours menu TTS. What I recommend is after you've created a text history greeting like that, on the left here, you want to click on our Greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, and rename that file so that way if you have to go back to it, it's easy to recognize. All right, you can upload your own file, that .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You just find the file on your computer and then click Update. It will upload it, then save and save changes. You can choose from an existing file on the account. Now, this pull down will show, right, like main open hours menu TTS here, but it also includes any of your voicemail greetings, right? If you have MP3 like hold music, right, that's an option to pick from here. So that's why it's important to know what you want to use file names that you will recognize easily. You can record it over the phone. Now, it says pick up a phone registered on this account. This means pick up a VoIP phone that's registered on this account. Now, you can, so basically this is a security feature. It says it wants you to use a VoIP phone because it knows it's registered specifically to this account, so it's associated properly with the account. If you want to use a cell phone or a landline, then you want to look down here under settings, and this particular setting right down here, allow outside recording, right? You would turn this on. Now you can call in from a cell phone or a landline, or if you have that friend with a great radio voice, right, they can then call in. Now, even from there, you would still need this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So we're in our open hours, so it's only available during my open hours, right? If I called in on a holiday, because I only have 24-hour or holidays, then this PIN number won't work. Likewise, my holiday PIN number won't work during my open hours. Now, if you haven't set up a greeting yet, then when you first call in, the system will tell you there's been no greeting set for this menu and then prompt you to enter the PIN number. If you have a greeting in place, however, then right, you'll still hear your main greeting. You can enter your PIN number at that point, and then it'll walk you through recording a new greeting over the phone. However, the system just overwrites the existing main greeting that you just heard. So that's something to be aware of. All right, and then we have professional recording services. So when you click order down here, this will take you to, it'll open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They do their own billing, right? They basically charge your credit card, and then they deliver via email. They have various versions of English, French, and Spanish. They do multilingual. They have what they refer to as hold treatment, right? A mix of a music file and a script. But once they email you the file, then you can come up here and upload your own file. All right, so now we're on to settings. So first up, we have number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So they can hit an invalid menu option. So essentially, call comes in, right? Your caller hears a greeting, and let's say they press 3, right? System says, oh, they get one retry. So after that, it waits a little bit. Then it says, okay, that's an invalid entry. It plays the greeting again. Now the inbound caller, let's say they press 6, right? Like they have kids screaming in the background, so they're not hearing your menu options properly. Well, the system says, well, that was their last option or last retry. So then it tells them that's an invalid entry. Now, two things can happen at that point. If you have a default route or default action, after that second attempt, right, then the system will send them to that default action, in this case, the smart PBX directory. If you don't have a default action, so let me just remove that. Now there's no default action. So now the system says, okay, they've made two mistakes, right, because they only get the one retry. So the system ends the call. And it does tell them, say, we did not hear a valid entry. Thank you, goodbye. Now, dialing timeout, that's how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes that the caller is done. So let's say that previous scenario, caller pressed 3, the system waits to a count of 10, right? Thinking that the person might be entering an extension number. When it doesn't hear another button press, it then assumes, oh, you're done, and either follows the menu option, or if it's not there, tells them it was an invalid entry. All right, we already covered allow outside of recording. This is specific to the main greeting, by the way. And by default, it is off. Allow dialing extensions, right? If this is on, that means that the inbound caller calls in and knows the extension number they're trying to reach, the system will let it go through. If I turn this off, that means now when the inbound caller comes in, they can only press my menu options, right? The 0, 1, 2, 7, and 9. They enter anything else, it's an invalid entry. By default, that's on. And then this one here, suppress playing of invalid entry. By default, that's off, right? To let the inbound caller know, oh, you hit an invalid entry, right? An invalid option, right? Now, if you turn this on, then what you're saying is when the caller comes in and they press something wrong, the system doesn't tell them anything. It will probably play the main greeting again, depending on the number of retries. And then on that last attempt, it will either go to the default action or just say goodbye. Now, any changes you make under main menu, greetings, or settings, you click on Save, and then Save Changes. All right. Next up, we have the second option, which is referred to as the Live Operator Answer option. So call comes in, we're offering it to Aaron. Now, it's currently selected on a user, so I can send it to any one of my users. Or if I scroll further down, I can send it to one of my call queues, which would be probably a group of people. Right? I can send it to a specific phone. Not always recommended, because if there's not a voicemail there, then it just may ring for a while. And the default for the system is to ring something for 20 seconds. A media file. I don't recommend a media file here, because then you have the possibility of confusing your inbound caller, right? Because they'll hear a main greeting here, and then they'll go to your virtual receptionist, where you'll probably have a second greeting play, or maybe the same greeting play back to back. Let's scroll down. Right, you can have it go to a group, which is, again, a department, or an advanced call flow if you have multiple attendants. So in the case of a group, right, I'm offering that several group members at once, most likely. The system will follow the group ring duration in this case. If no one in the group picks up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now we're still under open hours, so it's these settings that we had just left previous to that. Third option, and we'll switch it for holidays here, is you can offer it to somebody or send it straight to voicemail, right? So this is the same basic options as the second option, with just the addition of skip to voicemail, and then you choose the voicemail box you want the messages to be left at. So this often comes up for, a very small business that says, hey, we're going to be closed for the holidays. Like that week between Christmas and holiday and New Year's, right? Some people may just say, nope, we're just going to go and be closed. All right, and then next, this one shows up if you have multiple auto attendants set up that are available in main menu. And basically, you're just sending it to a secondary attendant. Again, that's not going to be available on all accounts. Next up, the main conference number. You can add additional numbers to be your conference number, right? It's add from spare or buy new, right? Local or toll free. You can have a custom text-to-speech greeting, excuse me. If you click enable, you type in what you want the system to say, and then click on save. Even if you don't have that custom greeting enabled, the system does say welcome to the conference, and then prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. And then the main fax box number, you can have the one main fax box number, right? So if I didn't have one here, I'd have the option to add from spare, buy new. And then if you click edit fax box here, first you have the inbound notification email, right? You just put an email address in this field. This email address gets an email every time a fax comes through. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if someone calls your fax box number, right, here's fax tones and hangs up, then this email is going to get this email address gets an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. And then we have the email permissions. You can put an email address here, or more commonly, you can put your company email domain here. This allows any one of your staff members with your company email address, right, to send out a fax. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account in that instance. So like you have an intern, for example. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create secondary or additional attendance. There are a couple use cases. One I've already mentioned, right? That's the submenuing, the one for English, two for Spanish option. The other is if you have several small businesses owned by the same entity. Each of those businesses has their own main greeting and their own phone number, but the staff, you have the same staff members answering calls for these multiple businesses. So you would click here at the top, click add attendant. You give it a name and an extension number, right? You can back this out and give it its own extension. Right? And then you would click on create attendant, except I didn't give it a name. Once an attendant is created, you can click on its name. Right? You have the option to delete, and then this here, option in the middle, available in main menu. Now, by default, it shows up as unavailable in main menu. This means it's a standalone attendant, i.e. its own business. Right? Now, if I look down here on the Spanish one, you see this is available in main menu, and that's why it's been showing up under the virtual receptionist option, for example. It will show up in other places as we go through, like groups. All right, so this means that other attendants can get to this secondary attendant. Now, each attendant can have its own phone numbers, and you can add multiple, right? Add from spare or buy new. You can click on an extension. Now, the extension for an attendant, typically for your staff members, right? You could literally, let's say you have a cleaning business and the person called in, oh, wait, I meant to talk to Poochwalk. Your staff member said, oh, hold on, let me transfer you to them, and just transfer to this extension number. They could also transfer to the phone number from their VoIP phone, but extension number a little faster. Now, if you want to change the extension number, for anything, for a user or a group, I always recommend first add the new extension that you want it to be, right? Then click on Save Changes, then go back and unassign the original extension number. Then we click on the little wrench icon here under Settings. And you see I have open hours and holidays. So these times or dates in case of holidays, this is going to match what we set up under main number. Right? So your secondary attendants will have the same hours of operation as your main number, right? That main virtual receptionist. But here, if you click on virtual receptionist here are the menu options you can enter, right? You can add routes, you can have your own greeting, you can even have these settings be different, right? Save and then save changes. All right, next up we have devices. Shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, we can't send a call to it, right? Green, like this Cisco device here, that means it's registered, so we can send a call to it, right? And then black means you've turned it off. Up here at the top, you can click Add Device, and first up we have SIP phone. Again, this is that physical VoIP device that sits on someone's desk. Excuse me. And then you have these manufacturers to choose from. And when you click on a manufacturer, you'll see the models that are supported. Some have a lot, some not so much. But you find the make and the model of the phone that you're working with. You give it a name, right? So Amy's phone. And then you enter the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. It's usually on the back of the phone, or if you click menu status or basic settings, it will show up there. And then you would click on create device. Once it's created, the only other thing you would need to do is go to users and assign it to a user. Now within the dashboard, you're done. However, on the phone, you need to access the phone's web user interface, web UI, and enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go to this website and get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages and look for or do a search for the document auto provisioning phones. Right. So on the support pages, it's about a third of the way down on the right. But auto provisioning phones, it will have screenshots of the phone's various phone manufacturers' UI, the proper syntax for that URL because it's slightly different for the manufacturers, and in some cases some settings to verify. But you basically just follow the instructions for your phone manufacturer. Usually that means you click afterwards, you click save or update or confirm, and then auto provision now. The phone will then go out to the web, grab its config file. It's going to reboot a couple times. And then once it's done, it should show up as a green device, like the Cisco one here. A cell phone and landline are the same. You give it a name, and then you put +1 area code and phone number. And then click on create device. Now, let's click on this existing one here. It's actually an international one. This under we're under advanced options. Right, here are the basic default settings for a cell phone or a landline. So when a call comes to this device, right, this looks like Peter's phone, it will ring his phone, right? He will then pick up, he'll then hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1, right? Once he presses 1, he's telling the system, yes, he's there, and yes, he wants to take his call, and it'll connect the call to him. Now, that doesn't work for every situation. For instance, if you're using a cell phone or landline to actually send calls to your automated after-hours answering service, right? Well, that automated service can't press 1, right? It doesn't know when to do so. So in that instance, right here, it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark here. So now when we send a call to this phone number, we don't wait for the pressing of 1, right? We hear that pickup tone and we connect the call right away. Your automated answering service then takes over the call and handles it. Now, if this is really your cell phone, then what can happen is your cell phone voicemail can pick up. You still treat that like a connected call, so that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. Now, another thing that can come up is the second option here, right? Keep original caller ID. So when the call comes to your cell phone, right, your phone's ringing, you look at the phone number that's displayed, it's whoever's calling you's phone number, right? So customer Mary is calling you through the system, you see Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it, you've just had 5 calls in a row about extending your auto warranty and you're sick of those, so you let the call go to voicemail, right? Maybe you're able to reconnect with Mary and complete the transaction, maybe not. So what you can do is uncheck this, right? So instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number on your cell phone, what you would see would be your main company number. And what I mean by that, right? This is the phone number that would show up on your cell phone's display. So hopefully you would recognize your main company number. You're like, oh, this is a work call. This is worth me picking up. Soft phone, first you should read this warning message. It's basically related to E911 and wireless VoIP technology. And then the system defaults you to creating a third-party soft phone application. Now, the third-party soft phone application can be used for just that, another application. These credentials could also be used to program a VoIP phone that didn't show up under the SIP phone list. You would give it a name, and then you'd want to copy and paste the SIP username. If you click on the SIP password box, it will reveal the password, so you can copy and paste that. And then the realm, right? Those three pieces of information are what you need to program that application or device. Now, we do have some guides available on our website under the support pages for some VoIP phones and some other soft phone applications, but there are a ton of models and applications out there, so we don't have that many to cover all of those various options. Landline, just like cell phone. Fax would be for a digital fax machine. I have not encountered a user making use of that. ATA, this would be for an ATA adapter, meaning you're using an analog phone connects to this adapter that then allows to get on to your network, right, and get on the internet. In some cases, people also use this to connect to a fax machine. Now, if the ATA adapter doesn't work, you could also just use a third-party soft phone to program those devices. And then lastly, we have the web phone. To me, there's not a point in adding a web phone here because the web phone has a login, and that login is the same as a user's dash login. So you might as well just add it to a user directly versus adding it here and then having to add from spare. Oh, and then if you ever click on the wrench icon here on a VoIP device, right, you can always double check the codecs. You at least want the G711A and the G711U. That's the major thing to double check if you have some problems with your VoIP phone. Excuse me. All right, next up we have greetings. This is your greetings manager. This shows all your media files on the account. So if it's a main greeting, for example, a voicemail greeting, or a hold music file. Up here at the top, you can add a new file, right? Give it a name, find the file on your computer, and then you would click on create greeting. It will upload it to the system. .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Here, right, you see the greeting name, right? The source, TTS, text to speech, which in this case is pretty obvious, right? Upload means you uploaded the file, and then recording means you recorded it over the phone. You can download these files so you can listen to them to make sure they're still relevant or needed, like especially in the case of the main menu open hours TTS. You can click on the little wrench icon here. Then this is where you would change the name of a file or delete it because it's not relevant. Next up, we have ring groups or groups, also referred to as hunt groups. Groups are included in plans, so it's not something you have to worry about an add-on fee. Up here at the top, you click add a group. You give it a name and an extension number, right? And then you click and drag the people that you want to be in that group, and you click on create group. Once a group is created, you can then click on a group's name. You can change the name at any time. And then you have the group call attempts. This is essentially how many times you're telling the system to offer an inbound call to your group members. Those little arrows here to the right, so you can increase that as needed. And then you also have the option to delete a group. Go ahead and click on Save Changes. Then we have the members box for a group. So here along the top, right, you have distribute option and then timestamps. And this last one you can edit, which defaults to 120 seconds. If I click distribute here, so now I'm equalizing out how long the call is offered to each user, and it's going in order. Now, if I want to change the order, let's say Michael has lots of time, say David's working on a project. Move Aaron up here, right? Now, right, you can click and drag people to change the order. I haven't actually changed the call order yet, right? Because David's still at the beginning. But then I click distribute, and now Michael's at the end, at the beginning. Now, these are sliders, so I can also adjust the ringing time how I see fit. So now I'm going to set up blast ringing or ring all. There. So now a call comes in, it's ringing everybody at once, right? For the same amount of time. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. If my users have multiple devices, right, and a call comes into this group, let's say Mike here has 3 devices, right? Well, when a call comes into the group, all 3 of his devices are going to ring, right? Now, there's a user feature called Follow Me, where you can, as an admin, you can set up the order that those devices will ring, but a call from a group ignores that Follow Me setting on the user. Likewise, let's say call comes in, Michael answers it first, and he's helping that customer, and a second call comes in. If the call he answered, or if the phone he answered the call on has call waiting, he's going to hear a call waiting beep until one of the other staff members picks up a call. Right? So that if he doesn't want to hear that beep, he would need to disable call waiting on the device he's answering the calls on. All right, groups can have extensions. This is typically what your staff members use to transfer calls to a particular group. Right, groups can have their own phone number. Right, add from spare, by new. Now, one thing to keep in mind for groups, or for phone numbers on groups or users, those phone numbers are available 24/7. They don't follow your hours of operation, right? Because the hours of operation is in relation to your main numbers, not these numbers. And then we have group features. So first up is ring back. If you enable, so by default, when a call comes into the group, right, the inbound caller will hear the ringing sound from the devices they're reaching out to, right? So in this case, I'm reaching out to several devices. So at least one of them is sending in that ringing tone back, I hope. That's what my inbound caller hears. If I don't want them to hear that ringing sound, right, I would enable ring back, and then I would upload a media file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that this music file, right, this media file, replaces the sound of that ringing. So for some reason, we're reaching out to devices, and those devices don't return that ringing sound. The ringing back media file doesn't play either, right, because it's replacing that ringing sound. It needs something to replace. Right, next action, and when you enable this, what do you want the system to do if no one picks up? And you have a pull down here. You can send them back to your main open hours. All right, virtual receptionist. You can send it to an auto attendant that's available in the main menu. You can send it to one of your call queues. You can send it to a specific phone. You can send it to another user, or you can send it to a voicemail box. Actually, you should also be able to send it to another group. Yes, you can also send it to another group. And then you would click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. So they're not at their normal desk phone, but they're sending calls to their cell phone, for example. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text in front of the caller ID, and so that way they know what the call is about. Bear in mind that you want to avoid having the prepend on the group and a phone number that goes to that group, because only the group one would then come through. Numbers tab, this shows you the numbers on your account. It starts off with numbers in use. This is basically showing you where the numbers go. You do have the little gear icon here, so you can adjust the caller ID, prepend, and etc. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using right now. Now, if I want to reduce my phone bill, right, because I'm at like 20 phone numbers on this account, so I'm definitely getting an overage per number. What I can do is put a little check mark in front of one of these numbers. And now I have the option here to delete. I confirm that deletion. And now the numbers are removed from my account, so I save a little money on my next invoice. right? You can bind numbers here, right? Local or spare or local or toll free, right? Just puts them in spare status right off the bat. So then you would assign them later. If you click on port, this starts the port process. And you just give it a name, choose local or toll free, click next. And now the system wants you to upload a copy of your most recent bill for this phone number. It's going to ask you for the numbers you want to port, the address associated with those phone numbers. It will then give you the option to download a blank letter of agency or LOA. You do need to complete and sign that LOA. And then you can upload it right here in that process. Now, the LOA asks you for company information, right? Like company name, address. That information should match what your current carrier has on file for your phone numbers, right? So if you are XYZ cleaning with AT&T, but you're ABC cleaning with VirtualPBX, on the LOA, you need to put in XYZ cleaning, right? And whatever address they have on file for you. It does need to be signed. Now that can be a digital signature, right? So you have a little like JPEG file you can put in on top of as your signature, or you can print it out, sign it, and scan it back in, right? But if you just type your name in, that's going to get rejected. And most times our porting team will catch that and say, hey, this needs to be signed, because we know if we submit a typed name LOA, after a couple of days, we'll get a rejection notice, right? So that just delays your port request unnecessarily. At the end, after uploading the LOA, then you need to click on 4 checkboxes, basically saying, hey, don't close your other account. You need basically active accounts on both ends of the port until the port completes, among other things. And then you have the option to submit. It will upload your documents, right? So the copy of the bill and the completed and signed LOA. You should get an email right away after it finishes submitting, right? That's the system telling you, yes, the system got it. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team, meaning that, yes, human eyes have looked at your porting request and they've submitted it. That email is also going to have what to expect about the porting process. In general, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days, assuming everything is correct. A local number, on average, takes 2 to 3 weeks. Now, it can be faster than that, but not always. Like Google Voice, I've seen get ported in by the next business day. If we get a rejection on your port request, we will pass that information on to you. We do not always get specific information, meaning we get a rejection for address mismatch. That's all they'll tell us, usually, right? They won't tell us, oh, the street number is wrong or the zip code is wrong, necessarily. They might. In some cases, they're nice, but in most cases, they just say, hey, the address is wrong, right? So we had to pass that on to you. So then you would need to confirm with your carrier what the address is supposed to be. All right, users. This shows the users on your account. The little gray person icon, that's your standard user. The little blue suit icon, that's one of your system admins, meaning they can do all the things we're talking about here today. At the top here, you click on Add User. Helps if I actually click on it. And you need to fill out this form. Now, right, first name, last name, pretty straightforward. The email address used for login, this needs to be unique for each user, right? You can't reuse an email address for multiple people. And you'll get an error if you try to do that after you click on Create User. You create a password as an admin, or you can have your browser suggest a password if you want. And then you have the main extension for the number, or main extension number, excuse me. Right, this is suggesting 1010 because this system was started with extension 1000. Right, so if you started with extension 3000, right, it would suggest the next one in that 3000 range. You can change this, right? You can literally clear that out and put in 9210 instead, and that's going to be the extension number for this user. Right, then we got this first option here, create a voicemail box for this user. That's on by default. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say you click on create user and then you add a VoIP phone to that user right away. Then your staff member can pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98 and click send. That will log them into this voicemail box that you just created for them. When they do that the first time, the system will prompt them to enter a PIN number and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. It saves a little time for everybody. Next up, do you want this person to show up in the user directory? You can change that at any time. And then you have the option to send emails to an alternate address. Right? You put a check mark here. There'll be a field there for another address. Now, by default, when a user gets a voicemail, right, they get an email. Right? It gives you some details about the call, right, the date, the time, the phone number, and an attachment so they can listen to the voicemail message. Right? And that goes to the email address used for login. If for some reason you don't want voicemails to go to that email address, or the user doesn't want them to go to that address, then you would click here, right, to send emails to an alternate address and enter in that different address that they want their voicemail messages to go to. This would also apply to like password resets, etc. Right, and you can change that at any time. And then here we have send credentials to the user. I think that's pretty important. So that way people know how to log in if they need to. Then you have the option to create user. That means if you just need to create one person, then you're done. If you need to add more people, let's be create user and add another. It essentially refreshes this box. All right, once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, so you can change their name, right? Someone decides to change their name for they got married or because they don't like the name they were born with. You can also change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address, you can change their password. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email, right? So we can say Aaron and I just are completely different wavelengths when it comes to passwords. I'm saying here, click on that here link, I'd send him an email. He can create his own password and get in. And hopefully from then on, he's okay. A voicemail box PIN. Now, again, for your VoIP phone users, you don't need to worry about this. For your cell phone or landline users, you do need to create a 4-digit PIN number for them. So then they can log in and they can set their personal settings as well as check voicemail. All right, here's the option to send emails to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory. Over here on the right, oops, this is where you change a user to be an admin or an admin down to a user. Next up, we have the time zone, right? And this pull down typically works, right? So you can just do a search for the appropriate city or time zone for that user. And that would help them have the correct timestamps for their voicemail messages, for example. Then we have the display language. So that would be how the dash pages, what language they'll be in for the user when they log in. You have the choices for English, French, German, or Russian. Then we have the ringing timeout. This is how much time the dash system will try to reach the devices on the user. The default is 20 seconds. 20 seconds is plenty of time to send calls to a landline or a VoIP device. It may not be enough time to send calls to a cell phone. Right? Generally speaking, it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline. Right? So how PBX systems work in basically, call comes into the system, goes to a user, goes out to their devices. So when we send a call out to a landline, right, landline company goes, oh yeah, we know where that is, send it right through. Right? Starts ringing on the phone. When we send a call out to a cell phone, right, goes out to the cell phone provider, they say, hold a second, we need to find them first. Right? Ping cell phone towers to find you. Then it says, okay, we got them, send the call. Right? That delay, that basically trying to find your cell phone, is why you wouldn't want a longer ring time for calls going to a cell phone. Right? Users can have multiple extension numbers. Right? We just add an extension number. Users can also have their own phone number or phone numbers if they want to have multiple. Again, these phone numbers work 24/7, right? They're not going to pay attention to your hours of operation. Something to be aware of. Here's the devices box. So you can add devices directly here to a user. Now, if I want to, I can unassign this device. If I go to soft phone, right, I get that same wireless warning message. Now, again, for a soft phone, the system's going to default me to a third-party soft phone. However, on the user page, you notice I have an extra little piece of information down here at the bottom where it says use third-party application. I can click on that. Now it says use VirtualPBX application. And now it's telling me, oh, the email address associated with this user already has a soft phone. I don't know if I have a user here that doesn't have a soft phone in place. Yeah, we'll just delete this one. Save changes. That should allow me to send him a new one. We'll see. Yep. So now I just give a device name, right? Right, I click on create device, and then when I click on save changes, this will send Fred an email with his login credentials for the VirtualPBX soft phone application. There'll also be download links in that email, so he can just download the app to his, Android or iPhone, or he can also get the links for the Windows or Mac OS versions of the app. And he would use those login credentials to log into the soft phone. He can then make and receive calls from it. All right, users have features. Now, the first one, caller ID number, only works for users that have their own phone number. So if we go back up here to Aaron, who has this caller ID number in place, right? You change it on, and you select a phone number that the user has, and you click on Save Changes. So now, whenever Aaron here makes an outbound call from his VoIP phone, it's that 775 phone number will show up as outbound caller ID, not the 408 number I have set up under main numbers. Call forwarding helps to actually click on it. You have off, on, or failover mode. Now, your staff members can turn call forwarding on themselves. They don't need you to do it, right? They can either do that via their user portal, which we'll get to at the very end here, or they can do it with a feature code on their VoIP phones. Failover mode is something you do have to set up. Failover mode is for when a VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, and a call happens to come into the user. The system, right, detects, oh, there's no VoIP phones, I'll send it to the forwarding device. So then you just need to put +1 area code and phone number for a mobile or landline phone, and then click on Save Changes. Now, the device you're forwarding it to shouldn't be a device that's already on the user, right? So if Aaron here had a cell phone and a landline, or sorry, a cell phone and a VoIP phone, excuse me, then I don't need to make use of call forwarding because he already has his cell phone as a potential device that he can answer calls on. All right, hot desking, this is a VoIP phone feature. And this is where your staff members might be sitting at different desks from day to day, right? So Aaron comes in on Tuesday and he sits down at desk number 7. He picks up the VoIP phone there, hits *11, that turns hot desking on that phone. The system asks him for his hot desk ID, which in this case is 1008. And the system then tells him calls will be sent to this device. So now for the rest of his workday, right, calls to Aaron will ring at the phone he's sitting at, right? Whether that's a call coming in from a ring group that he's a part of, or someone dialed his extension, or he's on an Acd queue. At the end of Aaron's day, he picks up his handset again, hits *12 and clicks send. That turns off hot desking. Next time Aaron's in the office, let's say that's Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 7. He's like, all right, whatever. He says, hi, Felicia, walks down. He sits down at desk number 10, just a couple seats over, does the same thing, right? *11, 1008. Now calls are coming to him at that phone. Voicemail. This will be basically default settings for voicemail. One thing to note, email transcription or voicemail transcription here, that is a plan-specific feature, so it's available on some plans and not all. And that is the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out in the email notification that it sends to you. It's not perfect, right? Because sometimes people don't talk into their microphone properly, or there's enough background noise that the system has trouble making out the words that were said. Now, by default, the system emails out an attachment along with the email notification. And that way your staff members can double click on that attachment and listen to the voicemail. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and cannot accept any more. So if your staff members are good about clearing out their voicemails, you don't have to worry about it, right? If for some reason they're not, then you can click on this option here, right? Which will delete the messages from the database after that notification is sent out, right? So voicemail comes in, system adds it to a voice email, sends it out, right? So sends out email with attachment, deletes voicemail box from the system, or deletes voicemail from the voicemail box, excuse me. Right, so now your user has the voicemail, right, an email. It's not going to show up in their voicemail box anymore, meaning they can't call in over the phone to listen to it, nor can they view it under their user portal, right? So they can only get it from their email at that point. Fax box. Users can have their own fax box if you want them to. Right, so if you have someone whose job is solely to get like specific kinds of contracts, and there's no point in having it go to your general fax box, you would create a fax box for that user. Now, you have a couple of options when you do so. Right, you can use an extension number like I have set up here, or you can assign a phone number to the fax box, either from a spare number or by a new one. I personally recommend making use of the phone number, right? Because if that person ever needs to fax out, the system will use the extension number or phone number associated with the fax box as the outbound caller ID of their fax. Well, an extension number is not a valid caller ID, so that means that outbound fax would fail, versus they have a phone number, right? It just uses that as the outbound caller ID. It will go through without issue. Now, downside of that, obvious, is that it uses up a phone number for your monthly allotment, so that might be a cost consideration. Conference bridge. So as an admin, once you enable the conference bridge feature on a user, the only thing you need to do is set up a PIN number and click on Save Changes. Your users can then change their PIN numbers for the conference room under the user portal. You can also have, depending on your plan, have the option to enable video conferencing. All right, Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. So let's go down here, down to Jan. We click Enabled, and this is default. And what the system's waiting for is to find out from you what devices should it actually send calls to, right? So you would uncheck the boxes for the devices that you want to be in use, and then how much time are they ringing for. Now up here along the top, right, you have timestamps and you have this distribute option. So just like ring groups, you can click on that and now it's ringing to these two phones in this order. Right, just like groups, you can click and drag, click distribute again, change the order, and then you can also do ring all, etc. Now let's see. See if I can't quite get the Peter's just getting cut off. All right. But follow me if you have a user with both a VoIP phone and a cell phone, for example, right? You could do something, right? You can have the VoIP phone only ring for like 20 seconds or so. And then you could have the cell phone be like the backup. Oops. And I always recommend a little bit of overlap when you have a cell phone. So that way you can have a longer ring time for the cell phone, right? And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, music on hold. You can choose to have your users have their own hold music. You would just click Enable, and then you just need to upload a .ogg, .mp3, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. This will supersede the music on hold file you be uploaded on the dashboard page. Customize call recording. If you enable it, this is where the system now waits for you to tell it what kind of calls you want recorded, right? So inbound internal, that means coworker Bob called, we're on Fred, right? But basically coworker call, right? Inbound coworker call, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called me, right? Outbound internal, that means I called coworker Bob, right? And then outbound external means I called customer Mary back, right? And I don't have to have all of these on, right? I can like turn these off and then choose to only have those particular calls recorded. Now the call recordings by default you can access them at recordings.virtualpbx.com. Every plan has included storage as part of your monthly plan price. That's going to vary depending on your plan. And then there's an overage associated with that in case you go over. For details on that, you'd want to talk to our account services team. They can tell you what's included in terms of storage and what the overage is. Likewise, if you needed to change plan for some of these other features, account services is who you would talk to determine what the cost difference would be. And then do not disturb. If you enable it, that means you're not going to receive phone calls, right? Your phones will not ring. Calls will go to voicemail or simply skip over you depending on if you're in a group or in a queue. Now these are admin features, so your users won't be able to click D&D on here, only if they have the D&D toggle at the top. All right, voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Notice this third column here, right? Most of them have an entry here. That means those are my user-created voicemail boxes, right? You can create your own voicemail boxes up here at the top, right? You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Once you do that, you click on Create New Voicemail Box. It will show up here. If you click on the little wrench icon here, right, you can review, right, the name, the voicemail box number, and the PIN number. And then under Advanced, you have these other options. So first up, greeting media. You can upload a file, right, the .mp3, .wav, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Right? If you have the voicemail box number and PIN number, you can call in and record a greeting over the phone. Right? Just call in your main number, enter *97, and then you would need the voicemail box number and the PIN number. And then option 5 is to get to your personal settings to record a greeting. So the media file, that's the default greeting. that place for that voicemail box. The temporary file, if you select something here, that will supersede what's allocated in the media file section there, right? So that's for that out of office or vacation voicemail greeting. All right, once the temporary file is set back to none, then the default media file will play again. All right, recipients. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, they already have a recipient built in, right? The email address used for login. But for any email or any voicemail box, you can come here and add additional recipients. You simply click Add a Recipient, and then you enter the email address. If you only need to add one, then you just click on Save Changes. If you need to add more, you just keep clicking Add and enter in additional email addresses. And then we have options. So once a voicemail box has a recipient email address and has a voicemail greeting associated with it, then you can click on that first option up here, which is saying, oops, already set up. Right. Then after that, especially for the ones you just created manually, right? Then do you want to delete after notification, and or you want to make sure they're attaching the voicemails to the emails, right? And then you click on Save Changes. Advanced routing. This is where Direct Inward System Access lives, or DISA. So what this does is allows you to call into your system from a cell phone or landline. You log in over the phone. You'll hear dial tone again. So then you can enter in an area code and phone number and make an outbound call. When you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID. It's instead your main number. Now, by default, DISA is not enabled on new accounts. This is something you actually need to send in a request to our account services team to have the feature enabled. And that's because if someone figures out how to log in over the phone, they can make outbound calls on your account and you may not know it right away. But to do so, once it's enabled on the account, you click Enable here. And it automatically generates a PIN number for you. I recommend you click Edit Settings and add an extension number, and then click Save Changes. And normally I would say choose an extension number that's not in a series with anything else, right? Completely different. Again, it's just a layer of security, right? Because right now you have two pieces of information someone has to figure out in order to make an outbound call on your account. So you call into your main number, right? Rings to the auto attendant or the virtual receptionist, right? You enter in this extension number. The system then prompts you for the PIN number. You enter that. That's when you hear dial tone. You make an outbound call, right? You enter area code and phone number, and you're making an outbound call. Instead of your cell phone number showing up as the caller ID, you go back to the dashboard. It's this whatever company caller ID phone number, that default one, that is what shows up as the caller ID for that call you're making. Go here. Now, one way to be able to see outbound calls on your account would be via the call logs. We go here, and you see today I've had a little green arrow to the right. That's an inbound call, right? Came in. Looks like I have these little short calls, probably a robodialer. And then I have this yellow arrow to the left. That's an outbound call. And if I click on this, I see that Mike here, he used his white phone to make an outbound call, right? So I know that's a legit call because he's one of my users. And you see here, I have another, again, from a soft phone, again, on the account. Now I can download this file. It'll be a .csv. So I can then look at the whole call history, right? You have options for this week, this month, right? You have an option to download and custom. The system, you can go back 1 year for your call logs and download it. Now, if you have heavy call volume, you might need to do your searches down by 1 week and then download each one individually, especially if you think you're going to need to have that call history for future usage. You know, whether that's a compliance issue, just or what have you. Now, as I said, the system can go back 1 year. Our engineers can go back an additional 6 months, right? So go back 18 months total. Beyond that, the call data is not recoverable. So especially if you need to keep that kind of information for compliance or what have you, you're going to want to make sure you do this on a regular basis. Next up, we got feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these. These are just essentially dial pad shortcuts from VoIP phones, typically, that your users can use to access different features of Dash. Now, this information is available on our support pages, so you don't have to log in as an admin to see this all the time. Also on the support pages, there's a document called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet. It's a PDF. It has these feature codes as well as a brief description. Probably a little bit more useful for most staff members. All right, so that's the dashboard. Now we go up here to the hamburger icon and we'll go to Acd Cues. So Acd stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It is a call center feature, right? So if you've called like a major bank, right, and they say, they give you some message about waiting until the next available agent, as a caller, you've entered into an Acd queue. This is an add-on feature on specific plans. So some plans you can't even add the queues on as a feature, right? You would have to upgrade your plan and then you can add queues on. So something you'd have to talk to our account services team. We also have Acd Cues Pro, which are more expensive and have a few more features. But here we have the standard queues. If you're interested in Acd Cues Pro, unfortunately, an account can only have one or the other. It can't have both, so I'm not able to show you the Pro queues here. But on our YouTube channel here, under videos, there is an Acd Cues Pro demo. So I would recommend you take a look at those if you're interested in queues at all, just so you can make a more informed choice. Creating a queue, you would click here, Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on the gear icon on an existing queue. So first up, you give the queue a name. Right? Doesn't matter what it is, just something you'll recognize. And then you have the choice here. Does the queue have an extension number or a phone number? Can have one or the other, cannot have both, right? Groups are related to queues. They're like basically a more basic version of queues. But they can have both an extension number and a phone number. Now, over here, we have the queue routing strategy right here. This is one of the major differences between queues and groups. So groups, if you recall, you can have people ring in order. You can ring them all at once, right? And that's it, essentially. In queues, now pull down doesn't quite work, but first up we have round robin. Means it's going to equalize out over time among your staff members. You have most idle, which means whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes in. You have least calls, meaning who has the least amount of connected calls gets the next call offered to them that comes into the queue. And then there's least offered, meaning the least amount of connected and missed calls. Next call comes in, goes to that agent. So, for instance, let's say we have Bob and Mary, they're logged in. Bob has spoken to 2 people, but he's been offered 20 calls, right? Mary has spoken to 5 people, but has only been offered 5. So under least calls, right, Bob gets the next call that gets offered into the system because he's only spoken to 2 people, right? Under least offered, right, next call comes in, that goes to Mary. Even though she's spoken to 5 people, she's only been offered 5 calls, right? Bob's been offered 20. Now, in that scenario, let's say Dylan logs in, right, after that those calls have been already routed to Bob and Mary. Under either least calls or least offers, right, Dylan's getting the next few calls until he catches up to one of them. All right, then we have hold treatment, sort of cut off here, but you have default music. You can upload a media file, right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg. Now, on the pro queues, you have more options for the hold treatment, right? So you can upload a media file. But you also have the options to play their position in line, right? And also give the inbound caller their expected wait time. But on top of that, you can have different media file playing, right? You can say, hey, add media file, play this one, then add another media file to play different media, different greeting or different music. All right. Queue timeout. This is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold, measured in seconds. All right. Queue call limit. This is how many people can wait on hold. Now, this is on top of whoever's already talking to your staff members. Now, in this case, I have this set to 0, meaning that there's no limit. But if I wanted to, I could change this to say like 4. So that means only 4 people can wait on hold. All right. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged into the queue and a call comes into this queue, the system will treat them as if they've been on hold for that 3,600 seconds. Which leads us to this one here, the escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 3,600 seconds has hit, what do you want the system to do with that caller? This is a pull down. And these are your options, right? None would just end the call. If you see a person's name call flow, that means you're offering it to that user. Then you can send it to a ring group. Main column flow would send it back to your main virtual receptionist. Right. Main conference sends it to the conference room. Main faxing would send it to a fax. I'm not sure why that's an option. This is an auto attendant. You can send it to another queue. That's what the cubicle stands for, etc. And then the 0 out call flow, this means you're giving your inbound caller the option to press 0. When they do so, where do you want to send the call? And that's the same options, right? You can send it to a user, an attendant, another group, etc. Over here, we have agent behavior. So first we have agent recovery time. This is how much time after they have completed a call that the system will wait before it offers them a second call from this queue, right? So they have time to get a drink of water, right? Finish their notes in your CRM application. Right? Then we have forced away on reject or missed. That's enabled. That means if an agent misses a call, the system puts them in away mode, meaning they're not going to be offered calls until they mark themselves as ready again, which we'll be getting to shortly. And then lastly, we have the agent recovery connect, or agent connect timeout, excuse me. Default is 20 seconds. Currently in queues, your staff members can only accept calls with a VoIP device, right? So SIP phone, soft phone, or web phone. No cell phones, no landlines currently. That's something that's being worked on. So that would be an advantage groups have over queues, right? You can use cell phones and landlines. Now, as far as your staff members go, first you need to click over here where it says members, right? Little person with a headset. And this is my list of people who I'm assigned to be in the queues. Now, they're not in all of my queues. They're just available to be in any queue. Right? When you're first starting, you probably have no one here. So you would click on Manage Members. Now, people on my left, not assigned to be in queues yet. People on my right, already available to be in queues. If I want to move someone over, you will click here, click on their name, then click Add as a Member. Shoots them over to the right. All right, so now Jan there is a queue member. Likewise, if I want to move people off, right, I could click on their name, click Remove, and now they're over on the left. Now I can go back to the queues list, click on the queue name. I can add agents here. So now the only people available is Michael, right? Because he was already in my queue members list, so I can click and drag him over and click Save Changes. And then add managers. Your managers have to already be a member of the queue before they can be a queue manager. Right? So first you add them as an agent, then you can make someone a manager. And then you would click on Save Changes. For your staff members, right, they can log in over the phone or through the website. I find the website the easiest. Your staff member would hover over the hamburger icon, click on Acd Cues. They would click on Begin Session. Now on standard queues, you're started off in away mode, right? And I'm red here. That lets me know I'm in away mode. Especially that first time you log in, you click on the little phone icon here, and then you select one of your VoIP devices, ideally a green one because it's registered. And that's going to be the default device that your calls from this queue are sent to, right? So that way, it's a way to know what kind of call you're getting, right? If you have multiple devices, you're like, oh, it's ringing my queue device. Pretty easy, right? Then you would click that off. So then when I'm ready to take calls, I mark myself as ready here. Now I'm green here on this queue, and I'm ready to take a call that comes in. When I accept an inbound call, this will change, right? This little green bar here will change to blue. If I'm on an outbound call, let's add a call customer back, that will change to yellow. If I'm on recovery time, it's a darker gold or gold color. Right. When I go to lunch, right, I would just mark myself away. So I'm still in the queue, but now the system won't offer calls to me. Right. Likewise, if I missed a call and I have force away on reject or missed, right, I am forced away, but then I can always come back and mark myself as ready when I'm back from lunch. And then at the end of my day, I would simply end my session, and now I'm not getting any calls from this queue, right? So now this would be an advantage a queue has over a group, right? As a user, I can choose when I'm in that queue and when I'm not, right? Or when I'm getting calls and when I'm not. Whereas in a group, your users don't have any options related to their status within the group, other than clicking on DND if they have it at the top of their page. Right? But basically, they're in a group all the time. In a queue, agents can log themselves in and out. Now, under the Pro queues, there's an additional icon over here where, as a manager or an admin, you can compare various agents to each other in terms of their performance. Also under the Pro queues, when an agent is on a call, an admin or a manager, they can eavesdrop on the call, right? They can whisper to an agent on the call, right? So that way the agent hears them, but not the customer, or they can barge in, which means both people on the call will hear. There's also more statistics available within the Acd Cues Pro, like in terms of activity log, etc. All right, Blacklist. This is available on all plans. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are not allowing to connect to your system. You're blocking them from reaching you. So you would come here, you would click Edit Blacklists. If you don't have a blacklist in place, you would just click on Add, or you would click on an existing list. And then you give it a name. And then your first option here, Block Anonymous. This means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID and you turn this on, the system will block calls, right? So those anonymous calls will get a busy tone to any of your account phone numbers. Otherwise, you need to come down here, add a number, put +1 area code and phone number, and keep clicking add until you're done, right? Adding a phone number per line, right? You would then click save. You go back to settings and you make sure the list is over here on the right under selected, right? Once it's there, you click update, right? So now my block list here is active, meaning any phone number I have on it and in this case also anonymous numbers, they try to reach this account on any of my account phone numbers, they get a busy tone, right? Whether it's a main number, the fax box number, what have you, they get a busy tone. All right, dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. Right, so first up here is 408, right? I called it 408 because what I'm saying is anytime my staff members make an outbound call that starts with the 408 area code, automatically change their caller ID to this phone number up here. Right, so pick up VoIP phone, dial 408 number, it's going to give this 408 phone number, no matter what their caller ID setting is on the user or what I set up as my default number. Right, so it looks like a local call to when I'm calling these 408 phone numbers. The other option you have here, whoops, is here where I create a feature code. So now what happens is my VoIP phone users, right, they pick up their handset, they enter *550, right, then the area code phone number they're reaching out to. And when they do that, the system will automatically shift their caller ID to this 323 phone number. Again, a way to show that, hey, I'm in the local area, right? Now, the phone numbers you can have to choose from must be on your account, right? So you're not going to be able to add a number randomly to the dynamic caller ID. All right, faxes. This is your fax manager. This is included on accounts. Your inbound faxes, you look at whichever fax box is on the account. And then you would see the date and the time, the phone number it came from, phone number it went to, the pages. You can download the file. You can click on this icon here to see technical details, which typically is most useful on a failed fax of some sort. Outbound faxes. Again, you can see the various fax attempts, the date, the time, etc. Now, most of these are successes, but you can see I have a failed attempt here. And if you click on this icon here, right, it tells you the status failed. Now, sometimes it gives you additional information. Right. In this case, no available resources. That could just be the server was too busy at that time. Right. But basically, what happens is the outbound faxes is when the system is trying to communicate out to another fax machine. That's where the problem occurred. This next tab, the email to fax logs. Okay, there's nothing here. If there is a problem here, right, it'll be a thumbs down icon on the left, and then there'll be a little eyeball icon here on the right. You click on the eyeball icon, it'll give you some more information. This usually, if there's anything here, that means the system had a problem processing the fax request in general, meaning the system never made the outbound fax attempt. It said, hey, there's something wrong with the user who sent this, or the document, typically. Those are the two most common. Right, in terms of the user, it means someone might have used their personal email address instead of their company email address. Right, the document errors, usually there's a problem with the document attachment. Right, someone attached a doc file, right, or docx versus a PDF. That would create an error. All right, monitor. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Right, doesn't matter what device they're using. Right, green means they're waiting for a call. I can also say who's available versus who's busy. Back to all. I can also switch it to devices so I can see the specific device that might be in use. Over here, right, I see my active inbound calls. Right, and if there is a call that has been parked, I'll see it listed here as well as a parking spot number. Right, parking is one of the feature codes that you can use. All right, number manager, this takes you back to your spare numbers page, so you can buy numbers and port. Oops. The recording manager, used for a couple of different things. So obviously you have to make use of call recording. By default, it will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com where you would log in with your dash login. You can see your call recordings that way. You can also link your Dash account to AWS, Amazon Web Services, and that in that case, you'd be using AWS to store your recordings, for example. So once you've linked the two here, right, AWS to Dash, when you click on the recording manager here, it will show what's on your AWS account in terms of the recordings. Reports, this is advanced reporting. That is a plan-specific feature. There is a demo on our YouTube page here, just under videos for advanced reporting. This allows you to create your own reports so you can get a better idea of what's going on with your calls. Right, so a bit easier than the call logs and a lot more detail. But that is a plan-specific feature, so you would need to talk to account services. Voicemails, this is the voicemail manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account and see their voice messages, if they have any. Again, this is a test account, so may not have that many. But if there is a voicemail, you can click on a box in front of it here and move it to another voicemail box. If it needs to go to the, if it went to the wrong person. You can also listen to the messages as well as delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. You actually need to talk to our sales team to get more details about this. Essentially, webhooks allows you to link other software to Dash. If you're interested in examples of what has been done, well, by us specifically, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com, and there'll be samples of the kinds of code that was necessary to link Dash to other software. And then we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal, right? As an admin, you're not able to get to anyone else's user portal, but you don't need to, right? So by default, user portal takes you to voicemails. Now, if a user voicemail box is set up to delete after notification, right, they won't have anything here, right? Because the system automatically deletes it, right? Call history, users can look at their call history. They can change their date range, for example, and see what calls they made and when. Faxes only really works if they have their own fax box. Contact list shows your Dash information, right? So other users, other groups, other queues. It's not something your standard users can add to them on their own, right? So like your salespeople wouldn't be able to add their client list here. The conference tab, once it loads, over here to the right, this is where your staff members would adjust their moderator and participant PIN numbers. Down below that, they have the option, are people joining muted and deafened, or deafened, I should say, as well as the play entry and exit tones. Over here, once you're in a conference, right, the person who's moderating, they can invite other Dash users to the conference. They can lock the conference here. They mute everybody. They can unmute everybody, as well as just hang up the call, right? End the conference for everybody. Also, while you're in a conference, under the participants, as a moderator, you can mute a specific person, as well as kick them from the conference completely. And then settings and devices. This is where users would set up their own call forwarding. You would click here, and then enter +1 area code and phone number of where they're sending calls to. And then click Save. And that is everything. So we'll go back to the dashboard. Do apologize, I ran quite a bit longer there. I'm not quite sure why. But I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end the training. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.